get like 30 to 40 hours. We're doing things with like no director, and they get something called a cue script, which is just their lines and a few words that they're listening for before they speak. So that is different than our normal season. On our normal season, we're looking more at like 3 weeks of rehearsal to 4 weeks of rehearsal. And when I say that, a lot of people think that's like rehearsal that we do at school, which is after school rehearsal. But actually, our actors are contracted to work 48 hours a week. So 3 weeks of rehearsal is nearly 150 hours of work. So they rehearse for quite a long time. How long do you guys rehearse if you do a play?
We don't get to do any plays. So.
No plays?
Well, recently our theater teacher wanted us to do these little bits of these different plays that we were reading about, but it wasn't very successful.
Yeah. And we wouldn't really get to rehearse. I mean, last year's 8th graders got to do a play, but we're like a lot more than they were, so.
There are more of you? That's too bad. You guys are going to have to do some scenes while you're doing this Shakespeare unit.
Yeah, no, that's what we heard. And we all love acting, but we just don't have the opportunity. And they shut down the theater club like a year ago, so.
Oh, no. You're going to have to start it back up. It'll be student-driven.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Let me know if I can help with that.
Does your company... did you go to college?
I did. I went to the University of Texas at Austin. I got a degree in theater studies. That's a BFA, so that's a Bachelor's of Fine Arts. And then I taught in high school, taught theater for a while. And then I won this award to study at Shakespeare and Company, which is in Massachusetts. You guys know where Lenox is? No?
I think I've heard of it, but.
It's up in like Tanglewood area, right? And then I got that grant and I spent the summer up there in Northampton and Lenox. And then I heard there about this master's degree in Shakespeare that you could get here in Stanton. And so I came and got my master's. I got 2 masters. I got a master's of letters, which is a scholarly degree. And that meant that I had to write a thesis and defend it. And then I got a master's of fine arts, which is a terminal degree in the arts. So like you would get a PhD in English, but you would get an MFA for art, creative writing, theater, music, those kinds of things. So that's my school.
So how often per week, for example, do you guys play like Shakespeare's plays?
So in the winter season, we are running a show Thursday, Friday, 2 on Saturday, and 1 on Sunday. And about mid-March, we'll start doing 1 on Wednesday, and we also do 1 every Thursday morning. So right now, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 shows a week right now. And then in the summer, it will be about the same. So we run, but keeping in mind that another way that we try to be like Shakespeare is that we do plays in rep, which means that our actors have more than 1 play happening at any time. So right now they're doing 1 Henry IV, Merry Wives of Windsor, and they've got this play called Anne Page Hates Fun, which is the first winner of that $25,000 award, Shakespeare's New Contemporaries Play Competition. And then they're in rehearsal right now for another play called The Arden of Faversham. And they're going to also add a staged reading. So they stay really, really busy. It's not like you get to just get a play up and then just do the play, which is what happens at some places. But here you're constantly adding more plays. And they also do all the music. So it's busy.
So what was your first reaction when you first started in the Shakespearean Company?
That's a great question. The first play that I saw here was in 2005, and it was The Comedy of Errors. And I left the building with my face actually hurting because I had been laughing so hard. This playhouse, because we do it with the lights on, the lights that you see right now stay on all the time, which means the actors can see the audience and the audience can see the actors, and they get interacted with on the sides of the stage, on the front of the stage. It's different. It's a different kind of Shakespeare because we are actually part of the action and the actors rely on us to help tell the story. And we think that Shakespeare, when he was writing the plays, was picturing an actual interaction with the audience. So those long speeches that you guys are about to be reading, those actually would be taken to one audience member, to another audience member. They would wait for reactions from audience members, that kind of thing. So it's a different world than when I'd seen Shakespeare at other places where the lights go off on the audience and that's how you know that the play is about to start. When you don't have that, it's all together. We're all in this world together. And it's just a remarkable experience. So that was my first reaction. My face hurt from laughing.
And do you think that's a better way to present Shakespeare than they used to?
It is the way that they used to, as best we can tell. There's this woman who wrote a lot of books on Shakespeare called, her name is Tiffany Stern. She's actually going to get married here in July. She's from the UK. She's taught at Oxford and at Stratford. And she wrote a book called Rehearsal from Shakespeare to Sheridan and one called Making Shakespeare and Shakespeare in Parts and lots of books. But she's done research to find out how Shakespeare's companies performed and rehearsed. And we've taken that research and made it what we do here at the American Shakespeare Center. So I think that that is the best way to play Shakespeare, not the way that a lot of places play it now, where the lights go down and you build a big, huge, elaborate set that has to be moved and all of that stuff. Our design comes from the words. When Rosalind enters and As You Like It, halfway through the play, she says, so this is the Forest of Arden. And then your imagination makes this room the Forest of Arden. And by the way, your imagination is way better than any set design that anyone could come up with. So this is how we transform the space, is through words. And I do think that's better. I think that's a better way to do Shakespeare. I think it's less boring, faster, more energetic, and funnier usually.
What's your favorite play and why?
My favorite play is a play called Love's Labour's Lost. It's not often done, but it's really about playing with language. So Shakespeare, as you guys probably have heard, is really good at writing. And the way that he's good at writing is because he knew a lot of rhetorical figures, like 200, 300 rhetorical figures that he could deploy in different patterns to create characters who sound different from one another. And in Love's Labour's Lost, he's calling attention to all of that kind of wordplay. And it's just totally funny when you're playing with language. So that's why I like it. It also has five strong female characters, which is unusual in Shakespeare because Shakespeare's female characters were played by boys. So he must have had a lot of really good boys in the company at that time. And one of them, the princess, is one of my favorite characters. She's just very strong. At the end, she finds out that her dad has died, and she makes a really big decision to go back home and not to stay, even though the king, who's been trying to date her, wants her to stay. She's like, nope, I'm going to go back. And if you still feel this way in a year, you can come and talk to me. So I like the strength of the women and the humor and all of that.
Well, unfortunately, we're running out of time, so.
All right. Well,
Thank you so much for
Thank you.
spending
Have a good day.
Bye, you too.
Bye.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm helping Alexi this morning, and I didn't introduce myself earlier, but I'll be here supervising them, just making sure that they stay on time, all right?
Great.
Yeah. So thank you for making time for us today.
Sure.
So I think the next group will be coming like in 1-2 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
They are on their way right now. So I'll time them for 10 minutes, okay? Okay.
They're doing here.
Come on in, sit down, introduce yourself.
Hello. Hi. Hi there.
Okay. Hello.
Hi. So right behind me, you see this is the American Shakespeare Center's Blackfriars Playhouse. That's our stage, and those are the doors where the actors enter. There's a discovery space right there in the center. And I'm just sitting in the playhouse facing away from the stage so that I can see you guys. But my name is Sarah. Who are you?
My name is Danny.
I'm
Melanie. Until I'm Melanie.
Matthew.
Hi, everyone. So how's it going? What have you done so far?
We stormed out at least 5 questions each.
You still have these 5 questions. Great.
We recited desk lines for the Shakespeare things.
Cool.
We watched a video of you guys rapping to Shakespeare's lines.
Yeah. So 2 of our actors actually wrote that rap. One of them is on tour for us right now. He is playing in The Comedy of Errors and Winter's Tale and Antigone. And the other one is in the troupe that performs on stage here at the Playhouse. And he's performing in 1 Henry IV and Merry Wives of Windsor and a play called Arden of Faversham. So do you guys notice what I just said? How many plays are each of those guys in?
Like 3.
Yeah. So that's something that Shakespeare's company did. It's called playing in rep. So you're not only playing a part in one play, you're playing in several plays. And within a single play, you may play more than one part because that was called doubling. And we try to do things like Shakespeare's company did things. So doubling is one of the things that Shakespeare's company did. And it's a neat thing for audience members because you can see a very broad array of the talents of the actors who are on stage.
Is there different levels of seats? There's seats that are more expensive than others.
So the place where I am right now is called it's the Pit. So I'm in the seats where you would pay a little bit more for these than you would for the ones that are up here in the balcony.
Okay.
We also have, if you see behind the stools, those stools that are on stage, those behind there are called the Lord's chairs. And they're also, I'm trying to do this backwards. I feel like a weather person. Wait, they're over there. That. So we've got Lord's chairs that are the most expensive. And they kind of look like thrones. And then we've got this section. And those stools that are on stage are also available for people to sit on.
Okay.
And they're expensive as well. So it kind of goes least expensive, this expense, then on stage, and then the Lord's chairs.
I see. How'd you become so fond in the Shakespeare genre?
So I first started liking Shakespeare as a 9th grader, and I was really kind of interested in acting. And so when we read plays in class, that was always my favorite time of year. But we did just read it, and that's kind of boring. So it's way more fun if you get up and think about how they would play. So when I started acting and got into a Shakespeare company, I became really enamored of Shakespeare because his language paints such vibrant characters and you can do so much with them. There's like a ton of choices that you can make. So I got interested in that, and then I went and became a theater teacher and I did some Shakespeare with my students. And I got a grant to go to Massachusetts for a summer and work with Shakespeare and Company in Lenox. And that's when it really kind of took off. And then I learned there about a master's degree in Shakespeare that you could get here in Stanton. And I moved to Stanton and got 2 master's degrees in Shakespeare. One called a Master of Letters, and that's like where you write a thesis and it's very scholarly. And the other one called a Master of Fine Arts, and that's a terminal degree for a person who's an artist. So I could go and teach at a college with that degree.
Another question. How do you start working for the ASC?
So when I came to get my master's degree, I was a what's called a graduate assistant in the program. And that assignment put me as working for the founder of this theater. So I started working for him as a graduate assistant, and then I started working for him as an assistant here at the Playhouse. And then I started doing contract work for grants and things like that. And finally, in 2009, I moved into this position because we had a little bit of a downturn and we moved some people around, and this position became open. And so I became the director of education.
Interesting. So how do how do we know how Shakespeare looks like? How did they find that out?
What Shakespeare looks like? Do you mean like his appearance?
Yeah, his appearance.
So you guys have a portrait of Shakespeare, right? On your packet? Yeah, that's the old fuddy-duddy Shakespeare. He looks so boring. So I sent your teacher, I know her first name, but I don't remember her last name.
Muse. Alexis.
Muse. Yeah. I sent her another few portraits that are what thought to be Shakespeare or not, and how they determined how it could be Shakespeare or could not be Shakespeare. So there are a lot of different portraits that people want to be Shakespeare. The thing is that it wasn't until like the mid 18th century, 19th century that people started to care at all about biography, and that's about who the person that was writing the plays were. And so that's when we start to get really interested, but that's already 100 or 150 years after Shakespeare's gone. So it's a little late to find a lot of information. So we don't really know what Shakespeare looked like. There's a portrait that I just found recently that I kind of want to believe is him. But as far as knowing what Shakespeare's plays were like and how those were done, we have a good relationship with a woman named Tiffany Stern, who's done a ton of research, and she's given us a lot of insight into how to play the plays so that they come across like they would have in Shakespeare's lifetime.
Because, some people would debate, that Shakespeare didn't really exist and maybe it was just a group of people.
It's true. There's something called the authorship debate. That goes back to that interest in biography that I mentioned. For some reason, people began to think that a person who had a regular old education in a public school in Stratford could not have written all of these plays. And I kind of take that as snobbery, because really you're capable, if you apply what you've learned, to do whatever you want to do. And I think that Shakespeare got into the world of the theater. He was able to access the stories of the lower class and the upper class. And he was able to tell those stories because his school was a grammar school where they talked about rhetoric all the time. And he went to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday for 12 hours a day, except on Saturday he got to go for 6 hours. So he was getting a lot of schooling. And he applied what he'd learned, and he made these beautiful plays as a result. So I think he could have done it. And the other people that they argue for, like the Earl of Oxford, he died before Shakespeare's last plays were even written. So he couldn't have written them. Queen Elizabeth is one that some people say may have written the plays. No, she died in 1603. His last play was 1613. So there's some problem with every candidate that's put forward to be Shakespeare.
How is like the backstage of the
You want to see it?
yeah.
Okay, let's go look. So we're walking down the stairs. And we're going to go through the discovery curtain. So this is the discovery space that we're coming up to. And you can see another curtain there.
Yeah. It's very dark.
It's very dark. And then this is the back wall. So we did not walk very far to get to the back wall. It's a very small backstage area. Just has cinder blocks, a little bit of furniture stored for use in the plays. This is some more area where we store stuff. Like this is used in our play Merry Wives of Windsor. You see candles and our drum kit, pillows. This is a blood station place. This is where they clean up the blood. And this is where the actors can figure out what songs they're playing and who's in what scene. So you see Jimi Hendrix, Marvin Gaye, Radiohead, Bruno Mars, Stevie Wonder, Huey Lewis, Whitney Houston. Those are songs that we're doing in the plays that we're doing right now.
So this theater is it, do you perform other plays other than Shakespeare, or is it basically?
We do. So one of the things that we're doing right now is a new play contest. And we've just awarded the first prize, which was $25,000 to the playwright who won. And her play is called Anne Page Hates Fun. And this contest requires that the playwright write a play that in some way references one of Shakespeare's plays. So, for instance, you guys are going to be reading Romeo and Juliet, is that right?
Yeah, correct.
So you could take one of the characters in Romeo and Juliet, like Benvolio, and you could write Benvolio's story after the events of the play end, and then you could turn it in, and if it had good characters and all of that stuff, then you might win the play prize, which would be $25,000. So the contest is going to last for 20 years. So if you do get out of school and decide that you want to be a playwright, you should look into it, because we could probably use your plays.
Oh, interesting. I have one final question. What's your favorite Shakespeare play?
My favorite is Love's Labour's Lost, because it features 5 strong women. It's all about playing with words and playing with language, which Shakespeare is so good at. But in this play, he even makes fun of it. Like, he makes fun of the words that come out of people's mouths. And so it's very fun and funny. And that's my favorite one.
It's put it in which kind of, those Shakespeare's different kinds of plays, like tragedies, like the tragedy of.
So that's a funny thing about Shakespeare. A lot of his plays are put into categories, right? So tragedy, history, comedy, and romance. But all of them have all of them in it. So in Love's Labour's Lost, we've got a little bit of tragedy, because at the end, the princess's dad dies and she has to make a really difficult decision. In A Comedy of Errors, we've got a character who thinks that her husband is having an affair. And while it's funny that she mistakes his twin brother, who she doesn't know that he has a twin brother, for him, and yells at his twin brother who doesn't know anything about anything, it's not funny in a way, because her heart is broken. She's very sad, but it's right there in the middle of a comedy. So we get, and in Hamlet, there are some truly funny characters, even though it's a tragedy. In Macbeth, we've got this porter who talks about like peeing and drinking, and he's a clown. So you get a mixture. It's never pure one or the other. And that juxtaposition makes it more lively and more exciting.
What
Guys,
is it?
you have like just one question. You have over
Yeah,
10.
we have to go. Okay. Well,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank
Bye very much.
Fun time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Yes. Are you tired?
No.
With them yesterday as well. No.
So what will they do for the rest of is this just 1 hour this morning?
This is 2 hours this morning. So they'll be done around 9:40 or so.
Great.
Thanks. So where are you right now?
I'm
What city?
I'm in Stanton, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard, your background. That's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ended up here by chance.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So how long have you been teaching there?
I started this August, but before I was in New York City. So
Oh.
very new here. Yeah.
How are you liking Boston?
So far, so good. I like it. And I'm doing my second master's MFA in visual art at Lesley University. That's the main reason why I'm here. So
Nice.
good. Yeah.
And you can do an MFA while you're teaching.
Yes. It's hard, but yeah, it's doable. Yes. it
That's
is.
great.
I like Shakespeare. I'm originally from West Africa, so we have a different take on it, but still really beautiful.
Yeah.
And now that they're talking about who's the actual author of the writings and who are these people and how they came together. And now you talked about or authenticity, like who before it didn't matter so much.
Yeah.
Nowadays, copyrights,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Before nobody thought of it. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much that people talk about with regards to Shakespeare.
Yes. I know. So do they have like maybe royalty to any people?
So Shakespeare, of course, wrote royalty into his plays,
Yes.
which is part of why the authorship argument doesn't make sense, because he was around royalty, because it was required that theaters be under the care of a patron, which would be a royal person.
Right.
So he was around them, but he was also around the lower class people because he grew up in a country town. So he could write all levels of status, whereas if a person that is supposed to be the writer of the plays was like the Earl of Oxford, he would only know the upper status and not the lower status. So Shakespeare was not royal and did not have any royal heritage, but he got to mingle in those classes because the theaters did, whereas the patrons did not. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Do you guys still get males to act as females nowadays?
Not so much. Well, I mean, we do and we don't. So right now in a couple of the plays, we have a male actor playing a couple of female parts, but most of the female parts are played by women, and some of the women are playing male parts. So we do a little bit of cross-gender casting.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking that then women have no right to do anything or to show their face. So, and the men took their role in the public space.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, Shakespeare was gender bending before we started talking about trans or. So it really lends itself to the conversations that we're in today. So, yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah. I guess they have like an interval where the man will come every 10 minutes, so you have maybe 2-3 minutes to relax.
Okay. Thanks.
The group will come soon.
All right.
Nice talking to you.
Thanks. Good to talk to you.
Introduce yourself. You have 10 minutes. Yes.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
I'm Sarah.
Hey, you go for Louis.
I'm Lois.
Sebastian.
Ines. Morgan.
Nice to meet you. So right behind me, you can see our stage. I'm kind of sitting opposite of the way you would sit if you were watching a play. But that's so that you can see it. So you can see we've got two doors that come on to the stage and then a discovery space right there. And then that's Juliet's balcony and the musician's gallery. And you might notice that we have stools on stage. People actually sit on stage here at the Blackfriars Playhouse. Our big thing is that we try to do it like Shakespeare's company would have done it. So we have read a lot of work by Tiffany Stern, who has written a lot about Shakespeare's plays and rehearsals and all of that stuff. And we try to do what his company would have done because we feel like he was thinking about that stuff when he was writing the plays. So if we do it like that, then we might find some stuff out, and we have. So I understand you guys have some questions that you get to ask, huh?
Yeah. Okay, I'll go first, I guess. So what's your job in the company, like the American Shakespeare Company?
I'm the director of education. So I run programs for people your age. We have a residential camp that is college prep, so you can actually earn college credit. You stay in a dorm, you work with directors and actors, and then you end up performing your show on the stage at the end of 3 weeks. So it's a summer program, and we have about 80 kids come every summer. Then I run programs for teachers. So we have study guides for teachers and teacher seminars. So teachers can come and spend the weekend with us and learn about teaching a specific play. Then we've also got a research and scholarship program, and that has to do with working with universities and colleges, and they bring students to us for a weekend, and we'll run workshops and classes for them, and they get to see all the plays because we do more than one play at a time. We're running in rep. And then I also do a section that's called lifelong learning, and that's like lecture series for the whole community and Shakespeare's birthday party and something called Shakespeare in Leadership for business people. So, so we have a lot of different programs that we're running here in little town of Stanton, and also take out on the road.
How are the sets made for the plays?
Do what?
How are the sets made for the plays?
Well, you look at that stage right there. That's what the set is, pretty much. Because Shakespeare would not have used sets. He uses language to set the scene. So he has Rosalind and As You Like It come out and say, hey, this is the Forest of Arden. And suddenly it's the Forest of Arden. Those poles over there, those can be trees. We can use whatever we want to make the room what it needs to be. So you don't have to like take time for a blackout and change the set and then lights on. All of that stuff goes away, and the plays can just happen really quickly and without a lot of trouble. So the lights do stay on all the time, which means that the audience and the actors can interact. And we think that that's what Shakespeare was thinking about when he was writing these plays. He's got a lot of questions that his actors or characters ask. And if they're asked to the audience instead of to each other, then the audience becomes a character in the play, and it's a lot more fun and lively.
What play do you prefer?
Which was my favorite?
Yeah.
I like the play Love's Labour's Lost. It's not very often performed, but it's got 5 great parts for women, which is kind of a high number in Shakespeare's plays. It's very much about making fun of itself and about language and playing with language, which Shakespeare's really good at. It's got some really goofy parts, like a play within a play where these really silly people try to put on a play for the king and it all goes really badly. So that's always funny to see. So it's got some, it's technically a comedy, but most of Shakespeare's plays mix comedy and tragedy really well. And that juxtaposition is kind of what makes them remarkable, because if you're laughing and then you start crying, then somehow there's more depth of feeling there. So any other questions?
How many actors are there?
Oh, that's a great question. And it's one that we've had to do a lot of research on. We think that Shakespeare's actors only numbered like sometimes around 12 and sometimes up to 16 through the course of his life and his writing, and various things that happened in the companies of his day. So we have a troupe of 11 that is out on the road, and they are touring, and they play all the parts in a play. Even if there are 30 parts in the play, they do something called doubling, and that means they play more than one part. So they have to have costumes for each of their characters, and they figure out how to differentiate those characters through acting. And then on this stage, we have 12 actors who are playing with us at any given time, and they double parts as well. So we're doing 3 plays right now. We've got One Henry IV, which is a history play that features a guy named Hal and a guy named Falstaff, who's a big fat guy, and a guy named Hotspur. And they are in that play, and they do all the parts. The 12 people do all the parts, even though there's like 30 parts in that play. And then we've got Merry Wives of Windsor, which also features Falstaff. And so our actors are playing many roles in the same play and then many plays in the same season. So they're doing something different every night, which is something that Shakespeare's actors would have done as well. Any other questions?
How did you get into Shakespeare plays?
So I really liked Shakespeare when I was in high school. And that's basically because I really liked plays and I really liked acting. And the plays that you read in high school are like Romeo and Juliet and Julius Caesar and Macbeth. So I liked those. And then I was in a town where we had a semi-pro Shakespeare company. And that's basically because you don't have to pay any rights to play Shakespeare. So a company that's just starting out can do Shakespeare for free without having to pay an author. And we did Romeo and Juliet, Midsummer Night's Dream, Taming of the Shrew, The Tempest. We were doing a lot of Shakespeare, and the more I did it, the more I loved it, the more I understood it. And playing it really does make you understand it a lot better. And then I started teaching theater, and I got this grant to study in Massachusetts. So I went up to Lenox, Massachusetts for a summer. Have you guys been to Lenox ever? No? Northampton?
Yeah.
You've been to Northampton?
Yeah.
Cute little town, huh? So, so I went up there and I studied for a summer, and I heard about this master's program in Shakespeare and this place while I was up there, and I decided to look into it. So I went back to Texas and I taught my students for another year, and then I took the GRE, which is what you have to take to get into grad school. And I took it and I did okay. And I came and I got a Master's of Letters, which is a scholarly degree. I wrote about how Shakespeare invented words. And then I got an MFA, which is a terminal degree for an artist. And one of your teachers is actually working on her MFA in art. So, so when you get a terminal degree, then you can teach at a college. But just around the time that I was graduating with that MFA, this position came open. So I just stayed here and took this job.
Do you have a favorite quote from Shakespeare's play?
Oh, I do. I like one from Hamlet that I can't remember right now. It's about a sparrow, but I can't remember it. There's, so many of them, and I'm totally drawing a blank. But you're going to have to find one in Romeo and Juliet that you really like so that you can tell me what it is. Gosh, I can't think of a single thing. I need my coffee, clearly. Sorry, I can't answer that one.
What is your favorite thing about Shakespeare?
What is my favorite thing about Shakespeare? I love how Shakespeare's plays bring the audience into the action. I think that when the audience is part of the story, it's so much more lively and fun. And one of our college prep person, actually, who runs our camp for students, did her thesis on the science behind audience contact. So there's this thing that if you make eye contact with a person for 4 seconds, then your brain registers that you guys are having a significant relationship. And then everyone in the room kind of feels it. And so when you come to see a play and the actor actually makes eye contact with you, then you feel like you are in his world. And it's such a different experience. It's such a great experience to see a play that's done that way.
Time's up.
Well, time's up.
Thank
you.
Fun. Bye.
So the next group is right behind them.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi guys, introduce yourself and you have 10 minutes, all right?
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Emil.
Hi.
My name is Julian.
Hi, my name is Alicia.
Hello.
Hello.
And I'm Sarah. So what have you guys seen so far? Have you learned anything that you didn't know before?
I'd say a decent amount, yes.
Yeah.
Can you enumerate?
Well, I learned that, well, mostly from section 6, that special effects were quite dangerous.
Ooh, so the theater burned down and when Henry VIII caught the thatch on fire, huh?
Not just that, also how the sulfur and the other chemicals they would use were actually quite toxic and could harm the audience.
Yeah, and they used mercury in their makeup. What a terrible idea. I'm just going to spread a little mercury on my face.
Don't you love a bit of heavy metals in the morning?
Yeah, nothing like it. Well, that's good. I'm glad you learned that. Anyone else have anything fascinating you learned?
That Romeo met Juliet at a party.
Uh-huh. Yeah, at a party he wasn't supposed to be attending.
I mean, he's breaking the rules, but that's okay.
That's okay. It's a pretty good meeting. And I want you to look, when you read it, for a sonnet. They share a sonnet. Do you know what a sonnet is?
Yes.
Okay. So they share a sonnet, which is kind of cool. If you kind of imagine like writing a poem together with the guy that you just met, that's kind of fun. I'm sorry, maybe I'm a nerd, but I think that's kind of fun. So I hear that you guys have some questions that you've written, maybe.
Yes. Who wants to start? Okay, let's just go like this.
So when did you get interested in Shakespeare?
So I started being interested in Shakespeare when we first read it when I was in high school. I've always been interested in acting, and Shakespeare's really actable. And of course, Juliet's a really great part. So I was very excited when we read Romeo and Juliet. And then of course, Shakespeare's the thing that you read when you're in high school. So I read Julius Caesar and Macbeth. And then when I went to college, I started acting in this troupe called the Shakespeare Factory. And I got to do Romeo and Juliet and A Midsummer Night's Dream and Taming of the Shrew and The Tempest, and had a great time with those, As You Like It as well. And then when I started teaching high school, I, of course, wanted to direct some Shakespeare. So I did that, and I won a grant to go study at the Shakespeare and Company, which is right there in Massachusetts. It's in Lenox, Massachusetts. So I spent a summer studying at Shakespeare and Company. And then I learned about this master's program that's here at the American Shakespeare Center. And I came here and I got a Master of Letters in Shakespeare. And then that's a scholarly degree where you have to write a thesis and defend a thesis and all of that. And then I got a degree in an Master's of Fine Arts degree in dramaturgy. And that's a fancy word for knowing a lot of history about Shakespeare and being able to help directors and actors make that history come to life. So I started working here after I got that MFA. And you guys can see, I don't think I told you, this is our playhouse. That's right behind me. I'm facing the wrong way. I'm facing you instead of facing the stage, but that's the stage. You can see the discovery space and the two doors that the actors enter through. And you can see the stools where the audience members sit. In Shakespeare's day, those stools would not have been pushed up against the wall. They would have been on the stage, and the actors would have had to act around the patrons on the stools.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, now that you've explained your profession, and it actually fits with my questions, I was wondering, have you ever made mistakes in when you're helping out actors or other people, and have you ever accidentally let them get through and had problems with?
Yeah, I think that part of growing is making a little bit of error and then fixing it as quickly as you can. So when I was directing my students in plays, I probably didn't know as much as I should have known, and I didn't give them all of the information that would have helped them. So I try to do that for teachers now. I try to give teachers the kinds of things that I wished my students had known so that they can do the best job that they can do with their students. I'm trying to think of a specific thing if I've ever. The exciting thing about being a dramaturg is that you get to do a lot of research and you get to suggest things that directors and actors may not have thought of about the text or about historical moments. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to use them, but somehow it can influence what they think about the character and that kind of thing. As far as specific mistakes, I'd say that my mistakes are probably more in the arena of like when I'm making a budget and I forget to put in some request for some money or something like that, or make it really clear to my managing director that I need this for this project. And if she isn't really clear on it, then she might cut it and then I don't have it. So like right now, I don't have a video camera that I need because I wasn't explicit enough about that request. So that's a mistake that I've made recently.
Just make a GoFundMe page.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm going to have to. You guys would donate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have another question. It's about like Romeo and Juliet. Like, who do you think owns Verona? Do you think it's or the Montesquieu's?
You cut out just a little bit. Can you repeat it?
Who do you think owns Verona?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like the Capulet.
That's for the Montagues?
Yeah,
That's a pretty good rap, huh?
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you like that?
Those two doors, actually.
Yeah, that's where they played it. Let's see. Who owns Verona? Well, I was a Capulet, so I kind of like the Capulets. But I think the Prince, doesn't he? I mean, he's the guy who has to come in and kind of solve the problems. Maybe it's the Friar, because the Friar's the guy who does all of the back dealing. And at the end, he has to like tell everybody what actually happened with Romeo and Juliet. So I'd go maybe the Friar. Investigate that as you're reading the play. See if you think he owns Verona. Come up with the reasons that you think that might be. Yeah?
Oh, well, since you know Romeo and Juliet, who do you prefer, Romeo or Juliet?
Y'all, Juliet is so smart. She is like so much smarter than 14 years old. And she knows what she's doing. And Romeo is just a little bit, well, he only thinks about girls. And first it's Rosalind and then it's Juliet. So he flip-flops pretty easily. And then when he gets into the Friar's like rooms, he whines like a big old baby. So I have to say Juliet is smarter and more together, and she deals with difficulty a little bit better than Romeo does. But you can prove me wrong. If you think Romeo's cool, you'll have to write me and let me know.
I don't really like the ending when they both kill each other, because I think it's kind of, I don't know.
That's kind of sad, isn't it? Yeah, that's a tragedy. I mean, I'm totally with you. Have you seen the one with Claire Danes and what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio?
No, but I've heard of it.
We
saw the beginning, and
in Fair Verona, very there. See.
Watch the ending of that one, because I like what they do with that death. It's a little bit less just, it's good. Watch the ending of that.
Like, the only Romeo and Juliet movie I watch is Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. Is it good?
Oh, yeah. It's nothing compared to the real ones, like original ones, but it's a PG movie, so I'm guessing it's fine.
I should see it. I will go and get it. Any other questions?
Yes. What is your least favorite work of Shakespeare, and why, and when did you read it?
Well, I read all of Shakespeare's plays in graduate school, so I can say that I read it then. My least favorite work of Shakespeare is probably Troilus and Cressida. I've just never been able to get that into it. It has a strong female character, so I should like that. But then she's really, really mistreated. And if you want to like have two people that should be together not get together, Troilus and Cressida is definitely it.
Yeah. So anyone else have more questions I want to ask, or should I just keep going?
What do you like the most about Shakespeare?
I like the way that he thinks about stagecraft. So we do a lot of plays that are not Shakespeare here. We do plays that are by Shakespeare's contemporaries, like people who were writing at the same time that he was writing, but not him. And they don't show quite the facility with being able to run the stage and the actors as well. So what's happening right now is that the actors are about to come out. I can feel the lights adjusting. They're about to have rehearsal in here. So we may see some actors in just a second.
Ooh, yeah. So Sarah, this is the last group. So when they're done, Alessa will come and say hi and thank you.
Okay, great.
Their time is over, but I think they can have like 1 or 2 minutes with you.
Great.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I hope that you have fun with your Romeo and Juliet lesson. I hope it is really a good time for you, and that it makes you love Shakespeare, not hate Shakespeare.
Yeah. You can make me see the graph again.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah,
Very enjoyable and a
Some
good learning
questions were
experience.
answered.
Have a great day.
Have a good
you.
day.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
So once they get back, Alexa will come in. So in a minute.
Great.
Do you have a busy day today?
Today is pretty busy. It's Tuesday, and Tuesday is always a lot of meetings. And then I work with a group of children who are in the autistic spectrum on
Yeah.
Tuesday evenings. So I have that to end my day. Oops.
Thank you for making time for us. I hope you have time to relax as well in between.
Thanks. I hope you do too. Do you have class today?
Yes, I do. Right after this.
Ah.
3
Well, I'm actually about to run to a meeting, so I might just hang up and write to Lexi a little bit later. Unless,
like a minute? You don't have a minute?
yeah, it's actually going to start at 9:30, so I should go. Sorry.
Yeah.
But Lexi and I will be in touch. It was really nice to meet you.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.